Look, I think it's true, and I think, I'll come to this from my perspective. I think the idea of alumni networks where there are groups of mentors you can go to ask you questions is an incredibly important part of it. And in Sydney, in some ways, maybe we're only starting to see those created. Now, in the session earlier on, we heard about Tiger Spike, which was started by two guys in their bedroom, basically, and they now employ nearly 100 people with offices in 4 locations. Spreets, and we had Dean talking about Spreets and what had happened there, and he talked about the fact that it wasn't his first business. It was his second startup, if you want. So I think we're starting to get a group of people who offer those alumni services. Pollenizer, for example, and their business model really does that thing. And I think it's interesting what you say, that I think it's true that in Sydney we're often willing to work with each other. But it is interesting, because it came up in the first session, that I think Australian investors and Sydney investors as well are afraid of taking risk. And I know this story here is that unless you've proven yourself to be a successful business person, nobody will give you VC. Whereas in Silicon Valley, unless you've proven that you can start a business and fail, nobody will give you VC. So it's like we're very risk averse. And Dean talked about needing to get money from overseas. So clearly, one of the things Digital Sydney needs to look at doing is how can we take the entrepreneurs who may get their ideas from Startup Weekend or Startup Bus, may come through Fishburners. We need to put them in contact with people like Maddox who can actually tell them what they need to think about to protect their ideas. But it's the finance that's going to be critical for us going forward.
Well, one of the key things that we try to teach at Fishburners is around the actual need to take capital on in the first place. And one of the big things, one of the massive barriers that every second entrepreneur seems to have is this need to get investment, to get some cash in order to make a business model work. And there are a number of companies, including my own company, that were making revenue a long time before we got any investment on board. And that's a culture that we're really trying to foster now, is that you can go out as a one-man band or as a two-man band, and you can actually make money, and you can actually get somewhere with your company without taking a dime of anybody else's money, and essentially holding onto your equity and making it more valuable. And of course, the option is always there to take money in the future. But the more equity you have, and the more revenue you've made, and the more data you've collected, the higher the percentage of money that you'll get, essentially.
On that point, though, I think it's very important when we deal with startup businesses and when they're actually doing the deal, I think it's very important when you sort of, you need to have a deal strategy as what do you want to get out of it. But something that we see with deals not going through is a sort of two things: being inflexible. So when you are offered a share, sort of not taking it, and then your investor might walk away, and if that happens, there's rarely an opportunity to sort of go back. So it's sort of a tension between holding on to your deal strategy. What do you want? Are you prepared to sell, or or do you always want to be in control of your business? And also sort of being a bit flexible around what you're willing to give up. And that really requires the business and the startup having a very good understanding of the deal breaker points and being able to negotiate that. And in order for a deal to sort of go through, you really need to have someone who, on the negotiating side of the deal, who is able to have a clear understanding about what you're prepared to give up and what the deal breakers are. Because it's a very sad thing to see a really amazing technology that sort of gets to the deal stage where you have a potential investor or a licensor and it just falls through. So I think there's some really important lessons to be learnt around that.
I know some people who a company that I do business with now, and about 5 years ago they were on the money round and they were offered $2 million, and they decided not to take it because they thought they could get more. No, they didn't get anything. And to me is that thing. And it's interesting, one of the other things, again, the TechCrunch article, startups that haven't raised money overestimate their value and market size by 100 times. Now, this company, to me, was an example. If they'd taken $2 million, they would be a significant global player in mobile games now. And they didn't take the $2 million because they thought they could get $5 million from someone else. So this is where you talk about the value.
It's really hard. Everyone thinks they're going to be the next Google or the next Facebook, and it's really difficult to know. Do you hold out for the blue sky, or do you hold on to what you have? And sometimes, a share in something is enough. It's a very difficult it's a very difficult analysis, and I've never been in the startup position, so it would be hard for me to make that decision. But I think
Peter, you were going to say something.
Oh, I was actually going to say This focus on the stars, the spreets and all this is all we get to see, but I can guarantee you that there are so many businesses out there that are making $1 million a year that you and I have never heard of, and I reckon I could prove that by looking at Google AdWords and doing some analysis. When I was in the Valley, we have a way of thinking. There are guys that don't even talk about venture capital. There are guys who sit in their bedroom and make $1 million a year, and there's a lot of them now. I just want to open people's minds up about how big the economy is out there, that bigger than what we can perceive through our normal channels. I've definitely seen it, and a lot of these guys don't take investment. They self-fund. And they make something out of nothing.
Look, I think one of the reasons why Sydney is a great place to do business and to start up a business is that I think there is a sense of positivity here. One of the other things I also think is that, to me, having worked in London for many years and in Sydney, one of the things I like about Sydney is the idea that most Australians that I know go home at night. So we go home and have dinner. We spend our time on the weekend with friends. We work and we play. And to me, that's something that's been missing in many other countries that I think is a value here, and I find really good with Sydney. And I'm always drawn to that comment that Paul Keating made once, which is about he doesn't know why people complain that Sydney's a long way from Europe. It's a long way from everywhere. It's equidistant from nowhere, if you want. And so it kind of comes back to the idea it's a great
close
place
to New Zealand.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. As I said, it's a long. But I think to me it means that it doesn't matter where you do business. We straddle all of those parts of the world, and that makes it interesting. That I think we pick up influences from the US and we pick up influences from the UK, and we often meld the best of both of those with Australian sense of humour, if you want, and the ability to take the piss out of ourselves. So.
And one thing I would like to add is that I'm coming from a very small place in Europe, and that makes it a lot more obvious for me to recognise that Sydney provides a huge amount of resources. Not only big companies are concentrated here. You can approach any big brand if you feel like you want to. Also, mentors and people can support you. Support systems are great. But coming back to the ideas thing, I think it's important not to think that your idea is precious. There are millions of ideas, and you have to be able to let go when you have a decent offer on your plate. Because guess what? Tomorrow you'll have another one, and another one the other day, and it basically has no limit.
Okay, so I'm going to end the session with a question that I kind of still haven't had an answer to. Mike, when does a startup become a business?
The day you quit your job.
Okay, Peter?
That's a good answer, bro. Yeah.
Okay. Olga?
I think when you have interest from your investor. The first investment.
Okay.
When it finds its business model and starts executing on it.
Sorry, when it
finds a business model. Yeah.
Sonia?
When you're able to commercialise.
Okay, fair enough. I'd like to ask you to join me in giving the panel a great hand, and thanks very much for your time.